All right, everybody, welcome. It is Monday. We're hitting this show for the week hard. My name is Stuart Davis. Welcome to the show. Like I said, I'm a flawed man of God. I'm a deacon at a small church just outside of Richmond, Virginia. Not a pastor, biblical scholar, or someone who's been to seminary. Not trying to get you to join my church or join in any special cause. I'm just here to talk about God. Talk about God to people who are new to Christianity, who are seeking Christianity, and folks who have been in it for a long time. What this channel is going to provide for you is a nice, relaxed, comfortable place to sit down and listen to us talk about many different issues, topics, and current events. Learn about God, talk about Jesus, and feel the Holy Spirit. Here for you guys to be part of the community. Hold on, getting something out of my pocket. Be part of the community and part of the content. And the way to do that, if you want to be, is be in the chat. I'm going to invite everybody in this watching this stream live to join the chat. We're a very small community right now, so if you put your comments into the chat, I will read and respond to them. Promise you. As long as I don't have a guest on and way more stuff is going on than I'm able to pay attention to. But nights like tonight, when we're talking about the Bible, hey, I want to hear what your questions are, what your comments are, what experiences, what insights, what's on your heart when we are going over this that you want to share with us. This is not a place where we're looking to shame anybody for things. We're just trying to get into a place where we have a better feeling and a better understanding about what's God is telling us through Scripture. So, um, plebe, expert, novice, veteran, all alike, guys. You may know less, you may know more about God or about the faith than I do, but this is where we're going to congregate and talk about it. And you're welcome and encouraged to be part of that. So, without any further ado, how was everybody's weekend? How was everybody's weekend? I hope it was good. I hope it was good and nice and relaxing. Mine was not so much for everybody in my family. We did have some disruptions, but just prayers for my wife with her profession and having a newborn recently. Um, it's just been it's not been stressful in the sense that look, we got a good kid, we got a good infant, we got a good newborn. We're happy with her. She's great, but the the lack of rest, the lack of sleep can be difficult. So if you could pray on that, I would appreciate it. We could definitely all use a rest at some point, as Veritax is talking about. But let's get into the chat. Nico is first. Alias seconding the first. Veritax, welcome to the show. Wild Weeb, glad to have you here, Wild Weeb. How are you doing, sir? And Veritax, exhausting is what it was. Just felt meh all weekend except Sunday morning. Sunday morning was good. That's a good morning to feel good on. So I'm glad your Sunday morning was good. Hopefully you do get some rest. I did get your message earlier that you put in the Discord for folks. And hey, we're rooting for you, man. Obviously. So good on you, mate. Good, Weeb. Look, I haven't seen every once in a while you pop your head in. I don't know how often you're catching the show. But it's always good to see you in the chat, Weeb. And always, we're in the Discord. Don't be a stranger. Jab Slant is here, not Jab Slab, who I initially called him in the Jab Slant is here. Welcome to the chat, folks. It is I can't remember what my small talk to open this was going to be, but so we're not really going to perseverate over it. We'll get right into what we're going to talk about tonight, which is Job. And Maybe this will be a short stream, and maybe it won't be. Maybe it won't be. We're doing 2 chapters like we normally do, and there's not a whole lot to there's not a whole lot of words in these 2 chapters. It's not short by any means, but it's heavy. Job is a heavy book. It is not light reading. Folks who, and we've talked about it, we know folks like Veritax who have experienced loss at a very close level. That's what we see with Job. Job has experienced high highs, and now he's experiencing low lows. And no matter where he lands on either side, he remains righteous. And that's a difficult place for us to find ourselves, um, maintaining that righteousness when the world is feels like it's just falling on us. But it's also, let's remember, here's the thing that I don't think a lot of people get. Job was good at the height when everything was going right for him. That specifically is something that is unique among the Old Testament. He's not the only one. He's not the only one by any means who does well when blessed. But we don't see a whole lot of it. We see some of our best, David, Solomon, right? Even Moses, for just a moment. We see folks who are given great things or tasked with great deeds, blessings, communing with God, beautiful things. And hubris or complacency brings them low. But not Job. Job was a righteous man to the point where God held him up to Satan as an example. You cannot beat goodness, true righteousness, true obedience and faithfulness to God. You can't beat it. And Satan goes, okay, I bet I can. I bet I can make this man break. But what Satan should have realized, because he should know human nature, is that sometimes getting people when they're at their highest point is the easiest place to get them. Because they've got nobody, that they don't feel like they need to lean on anybody. When things are going well in our lives, a lot of times we keep God at arm's length. A lot of times God is, um, passing in our thoughts because we're too busy absorbing all the blessings, too busy living and reaching complacency. When things are going well, we need to make sure that we're doing things to keep God in mind. Make sure we stay thankful to what He's given us. Make sure we stay obedient to what His commands are. And make sure we're there to help our fellows who may not be living a life as blessed as ours. Job is an example of how we should live even before Satan gets his claws in him. Because when he had everything, when it's the easiest to forget about God, he didn't. But when Satan took everything from him, and it's the easiest time to blame God, Job didn't. So we find Job, who was a man of great wealth and great great lineage, many kids, huge, big reputation, lots of land. He loses his livestock. He loses his servants. He loses his sons and daughters. He didn't curse God. Satan comes back to him and attacks his flesh, attacks his person directly. Sores, lesions, like some wasting, flesh-eating disease. He's inflicted with it. It hurts. He has got deep emotional pain and physical anguish going on at the same time, to the point where the only person he has left is his wife, and she losing faith, a place where we all probably could find ourselves, just says to him, "Why don't you just curse God and die?" And Job tells her, in no uncertain terms, to be quiet. Hush up. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know of what you speak. And so he goes out and sits alone, and that's where three of his friends find him. There's a fourth guy there, but three of his friends find him. And there they sit. Or is it two of his friends and a fourth, whatever. His friends find him. They sit down and just sit with him in silence for 7 days. And that's where we're going to pick up with Job in chapter 3. Eliphaz says, going off the grid for 9 days into the woods. Praise the Lord. Tonight is the last live view for a bit. Well, Eliphaz, have fun off the grid. It's always a good time disconnecting. Wildly says, I'm not in here too often, but I will try and hang around here and the Discord more often. Hey, man, whenever you've got time, you're always welcome here, man. I'm not going to put any pressure on you. Veritax says, one thing I keep in mind between the end of 2 when Job speaks and 3, when his friends arrived, we don't really have a sense for how much time has passed. We don't know how much time has passed between, if you mean between, we don't really know how much time passes between when Job loses his family and in property, and when he is stricken with lesions, and then when his friends arrive. But we know that once his friends arrive, they sit with him for a week, and then they begin to speak. But we don't know how long the time is. Long enough, I guess. And I guess that maybe doesn't matter. We don't know how close these friends were in terms of distance either. Correct. A loss of the magnitude suffered by Job in chapters 1 and 2, I'm not sure I'd have words for days. Honestly, I got to figure several weeks passed between Job hearing what happened and his friends arriving. Right? Easy. Several weeks. Maybe they were maybe they're friends from in town. Maybe they're business associates, and that's how they became friends. Not sure. Not sure. But whatever it is, it's a time for them to be there for him. Nico says, hush, stupid woman. Lol, it's a biblical quote. There's a lot of good biblical quotes. Figs is here. Welcome, Figs. How's it going? Figs went to church this weekend. Let's give him a good round of applause. Yay, Figs. Woohoo. Nico, I got a good church for you to listen to. I've been to the 2 past amazing sermons, and I guess that calls for me to give some sort of discussion. So maybe I'll do some Discord discussions in the future, but I've got a great link for you, Nico, for somebody for a place to check out. I've heard some very, very good sermons recently. Fig said it was a Baptist church. Okay. There you go. All right. Let's get into it. Job, chapter 3. We're going to pull it up on screen. Not an easy time for Job. Job is in a bad place. So they've been sitting for a week, and this is where we find him. Job's lament. After this, Job opened, so after after a week sitting there in silence. After this, Job opened his mouth and cursed the day of his birth. And Job said, "Let the day on which I was born perish, and the night which announced, there is a man-child conceived. May that day be darkness. Let God above not care about it, nor light shine on it. Let darkness and gloom claim it for their own. Let a cloud settle upon it. Let all that blackens the day terrify it, the day that I was born. As for that night, let darkness seize it. Let it not rejoice among the days of the year. Let it not be counted in the numbers of the months. Behold, let that night be barren and empty. Let no joyful voice enter it. Let those who curse it, who curse the day, who are skilled in rousing up Leviathan. Let the stars of its early dawn be dark. Let the morning wait in vain for the light. Let it not see the eyelids of the morning, the day's dawning, because it did not shut the doors of my mother's womb, nor hide trouble from my eyes. Why did I not die at birth, come forth from the womb and expire? Why did the knees receive me, and why the breast that I would nurse? For now I would have lain down and been quiet. I would have slept then. I would have been at rest in death, with kings and counselors of the earth, who built up now desolate ruins for themselves, or with princes who had gold, who filled their houses with silver, or like a miscarriage, which is hidden and put away. I would not exist, like infants who never saw light. There in death, the wicked cease from raging, and there the weary are at rest. There the prisoners rest together. They do not hear the taskmaster's voice. The small and the great are there, and the servant is free from his master. Why is the light given to him who is in misery, and life to the bitter soul, who wait for death, but it does not come, and dig searching for death more diligently than for hidden treasures, who rejoice exceedingly, and rejoice when they find the grave? Why is the light of day given to a man whose way is hidden, and whom God has hedged in? For my groaning comes at the sight of my food, and my cries of despair are poured out like water. For the thing which I greatly fear comes upon me, and that of which I am afraid has come upon me. I am not at ease, nor am I quiet, and I am not at rest, yet my trouble still comes upon me. Well, I think we can all say we don't blame Job for feeling this way. Job is putting into poetic words how we would all feel. And kind of a little bit of hearkening back to what his wife said, curse God and die. He's not cursing God, but he is regretting that he even lived. I will, Nico. I will. MR, welcome to the show. Dresden, welcome as well. Job's been through some stuff. And that's how he feels about it. And he wants to try to put in words exactly the pits of despair he's feeling. And this is probably just a tip of the iceberg. We'll use, and hopefully Veritax, you don't mind me using it because you have been open about this in the chat before. Veritax is listening to the show. Veritax lost his wife. I don't know how long ago, and it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter how long you were married sometimes. It's a deep bond. And I bet that there are times where Veritax has read Job, this line from Job, and said, I feel the same way just in my current suffering. just in my current suffering. Could be wrong, but that's a lot. And as Veritex, what you're saying, 3.5 years ago, after 20 years of marriage, look, me and my wife have known each other almost 21 years. We've been married almost 15. It's a lot to lose. Those of you in the chat who are married, been married, we talk about. I've mentioned it before. We had an elder at our church who was, inspirational to all of us, pass away suddenly. His wife still, and this was over a year ago, well over a year ago. His wife's still dealing with that. You've got especially a personality larger than life. And then his friend, another guy in our church, deeply influential, his wife's left to pick up the pieces of his departure, which both were sudden. One was very sudden, the other one was unexpected, but took some time. And like Figs just said right here, I couldn't imagine losing half of myself. It means this big piece of you is just gone. And it's not just the familiarity and the comfort of having them there where, the routine is missing. It's the loneliness of part of you. It's two souls into one. We talk about this kind of stuff about marriage and why marriage is sacred. It should be viewed as sacred, and the vows that you take before God and to each other as well should be taken seriously. And oftentimes in our society, it's just words that we say. But those who've lost their soulmate, no. Piece of you is gone. Those who have lost kids. Lady I sat in church next to, actually the husband and wife that I sat next to in church yesterday, lost one of her kids at a young age, middle or high school. He was around my brother's age. It was one kid out of three, and she got up and talked about one time how she dealt with it, and she talks about being mad at God, the grieving process. It's heavy, and that's what we really focus on with Job, because the possessions is important because it's how you provide. Like, there's not a social safety net going on at this time in history. You lose all your stuff, you can starve and die. You can die from exposure, you can die from malnutrition, you can die for a multitude of reasons. Poor health. So the possessions thing is big. And it's a life built of personal accomplishment built that's been lost. But your kids, and seeing your wife lose faith, it's devastating. Job's lament here, like I said, it's the tip of the iceberg. Let the day of which I was born perished. The night he was conceived go with it. Veritex says, only difference is there are times where I wish it had been me the Lord took instead of her. I'm sure that's constant. on your mind. I know I would probably feel that way. Multiplied by the everyone she brought into our life, plus all the kids she poured into, including mine. God bless you, pit pigs. God bless you, our bear tax. God bless your wife. Doesn't he regrets being born. His kids are gone, man. These fathers should never bury their kids. That is a saying probably older than Job himself. Maybe Adam said that. Might have been the first one to say that. Parents shouldn't bury their kids. And he's got a lot of kids to bury at the same time. So talks about it. Let that night be barren and empty. He doesn't just want God to, he just doesn't want to curse the day it was born. He wants it to be, he hates the fact that he exists now. He would rather just be dead. But he keeps going. He's still here, right? He still exists. But I guess he's like, what's the point now? Why is light given to him who is in misery, and life to the bitter in soul, who wait for death, but it does not come, and dig for death more diligently than for hidden treasures? You don't have to experience loss to have kind of gone through depression, sadness, maybe not clinical depression. I don't know what you guys' stories are. Right? But who's just been in a place where they just, I don't want to be here anymore. What I've lost can never be replaced. You can't bring back a smile. You can't see it again. Encouraging words, some habit that somebody does that you find endearing. The little things. And you just want to die. You just spend each day wishing it was the end. And what kind of life is that is basically what he's asking. What kind of life is this that I'm supposed to lead from here? Where do I go from here? Because I'd rather go in, I'd like to go into the grave. I'm done. I'm done here. I am not at ease, nor am I quiet, and yet I am not at rest, and I am not at rest, and yet trouble still comes upon me. Or maybe here is where I live, afraid of. For the thing which I greatly fear comes upon me, and that of which I am afraid has come upon me. Worst nightmare come true. Eliphaz speaks next. Innocent do not suffer. Chapter 4. Then Eliphaz the Temanite answered and said, if we dare to converse with you, will you be impatient or offended? But who can restrain himself from speaking? This is an interesting opening. Look, we talked about how his friends really did a good job. Job's friends really did a good job being there for him and not speaking. And then Job does speak, and Eliphaz can't help himself. He's got some thoughts in his head, and he's going to let them loose. And apparently, he's not really worried about how it's going to be, or he knows it's going to be harsh, And so he starts it off kind of like, "Hey, can I say something without you getting pissed off?" Not exactly how you say something, how you start a conversation with somebody who is dealing with a lot of grief. But I think Eliphaz knows that maybe this wasn't, or thinks that maybe this wasn't a visit. But yeah, as Veritax said, yeah, woe is me, Job chapter 3. And not, and unironically as well. And this is not with sarcasm. Maybe we go, oh, woe is me, as a somebody feeling sorry for themselves when maybe they shouldn't. Cry me a river, world's world's smallest violin, that kind of stuff. No, this is woe actually is him. Job is the definition of woe. In Veritex, it's not just words. Something appears to him in a dream, and he thinks he should share it because it seems higher somehow. Okay, Eliphaz, the first Pentecostal. All right, let's get into it. If we dare to converse with you, will you be impatient or offended? But who can restrain himself from speaking? Look, I'm going to something. I hope you don't get upset that I'm about to say this, but I am going to say it because I can't hold back. Because here I've been quiet. I've listened to you just now, and now I have to speak my mind. Because, of course, great. Behold, you have admonished and instructed many, and you have strengthened weak hands. Your words have helped the one who was stumbling to stand, and you have strengthened feeble knees. But now adversity comes upon you, and you are impatient and intolerant. It touches you, and you are horrified. It is not your fear of God, your confidence. Is not your fear, excuse me, is not your fear of God, your confidence, and is not the integrity and uprightness of your ways your hope. Okay, you've helped out lots. So this is what he's saying basically. You've helped out lots of people who have been downtrodden. You've done some charity work, and now all of a sudden, when you're the one needing charity and help, you're you're upset about it. You're supposed to have more faith in God for that. Remember now who, being innocent, ever perished, or where and in what circumstances were those upright and in right standing with God destroyed? As I have seen, those who plow wickedness and those who sow trouble and harm harvest it. By the breath of God they perish, and by the blast of his anger they are consumed. The roaring of the lion and the voice of the fierce lion and the teeth of the young lions are broken. The lion perishes for lack of prey, and the cubs of the lionesses are scattered. Now, a word was secretly. Okay, let's go back. Before we get into that part. Remember now being innocent. So here's the connotation because of the implication, right? Remember now who being innocent ever perished. You're being punished for you've done something to deserve this. The blameless are never punished. Is a this unfortunately and historically has been a major falling or failing of us as Christians and the church. The superstition that ill things happening to a person was the equivalent of God passing judgment on them is well documented. Even to the point now where we kind of see it with today's prosperity gospel. If you do great things, if you can buy your way, God will reward you when you are obedient to him. But they think of rewards in worldly rewards as opposed to heavenly rewards, which we may not have experienced yet. Now, certainly, there are things in this world where when we do wrong, We do reap what we sow. Or sometimes, even worse, other people experience the consequences of our bad actions. But that doesn't mean that when something bad happens to you, it's definitely the result of something you or someone else did. Maybe you got lung cancer from because you smoked for a long time. Or maybe a kid got a brain tumor for no reason, for just because it happened. One is a cause and effect. The other is not. But for a long time, even today, the shallow Christians will have this mentality. Something bad's happened to you? Well, you must have done something wrong. Must have done something, piss God off. And they forget this. They forget Job. Job should be something, like I said, Christians with any level of maturity, Christian knows about Job. Been through. Job's such a big book as far as learning and maturing. And this is immediate. We already know Job doesn't deserve what happens to him. He didn't do something to bring it on other than be good in the sight of the Lord to the point where that God held him up as an example. Veritex says, I think it was the devil tempting him. Job, you've mentored and helped so many others. You know how this goes. How is it you are now impatient since you know it already? Eliphaz in Job chapter 4. Chapter 4, Veritex. But yes. Well, there's a hole in Eliphaz. Veritex continues. Well, there's a hole in Eliphaz's logic that the innocent never died. None of them live forever. Even in this age after Noah, when people still live to around or beyond 120. But Eliphaz sounds like he's talking about karma. Indeed. MR said, this is the literal reason innocent until proven guilty exists. It's the same thing that happens when someone is charged with a crime. Psychology makes people think, oh, he must have deserved it. MR, by the way, just because that made me think about it, when we talk about this reason until innocent until proven guilty, we have this due process. God establishes due process in the Pentateuch. You can't, if a guy is accused, you have to have, if the guy's accused of murder or rape, like there has to be proof. There has to be an investigation. And you have to have trusted people perform it. Anyway, due process is base. Due process is godly. Amen, MR. Anyway. All right, let's get back into it. Now, here we go. This is going to lend credence to what Veritax said, as he thinks that the devil was tempting him. Or the devil puts words on Eliphaz. Now a word was secretly brought to me, and my ears received a whisper of it, amid disquieting thoughts from the visions of the night, when deep sleep falls on men. Dread and trembling came upon me, which made all my bones shake. Then a spirit passed before my face. The hair on my skin stood on end. The spirit stood still, but I could not discern its appearance. A form was before my eyes. There was a silence, and then I heard a voice saying, can mortal man be just before God or be more righteous than he? Can a man be pure before his maker or be more cleansed than he? God puts no trust or confidence, even in his heavenly servants, and he charges his angels with error. How much more will he blame and charge those who dwell in houses, bodies of clay, whose foundations are in the dust, who are crushed like a moth? Between morning and evening, they are broken in pieces and destroyed. Unobserved and unnoticed, they perish forever. Is not their tent cord drawn up within them so that the tent collapses? Do they not die and yet without acquiring wisdom? Um, Interesting thing, and I think the doc Mancha, when he was on here last week, kind of brought it up. Angels cannot say they are God, or demons cannot say they are God, right? I don't know how true that is, but we definitely see it when angels are appearing as messengers for God. They seem to always announce that they are. In this case, we don't see that. And the way that this apparition talks is full of rebellion, full of resentment, and not necessarily for man. It seems more directed at God. God puts God, good mortal man. We can't be as good as God. And so he doesn't have any confidence in us. And he'll blame us as soon as he has the opportunity to. We are temporary. We are fallible. And God apparently does not care for us. It almost sounds to me here like Eliphaz is saying you're being punished for something you did, but maybe not because you deserved it. I don't think you deserve it, Eliphaz says. You're a good guy. You've helped people, right? You've got confidence in your fear of the Lord. And maybe that confidence is misplaced. Maybe God doesn't really care about you enough that at the slightest bit of irritation that you gave him, he's punished you in a big way. That's what it kind of sounds like he's talking about here. I could be wrong. Like I said, guys, look, I'm reading this stuff. I'm not a professional. I'm a lay person. I am just the guy you could sit next to in church. What I'm doing is reading and giving my honest feedback on what I'm hearing here. If he can find there's the thing. This is how you know it's Satan talking. He charges his angels with error. Sounds a lot like a guy who might have gotten kicked out of heaven because he did something he wasn't supposed to do. Maybe incite a rebellion in heaven. Please, guys, go read Paradise Lost if you haven't. It's not 100% biblically accurate. He does a really good job with imagery, though. It's a really good job with imagery. And kind of giving a good what I think is a good accounting of the petulance and resentment, hubris, pride, what all the things that you might attribute to Satan and putting it into prose. But this reeks of Satan right here. He charges his angels there. Look, if he can charge his angels with there, who are you? You definitely don't have a chance. He is going to crush you. How much more will he blame and charge those who dwell in houses of clay, whose foundations are in the dust, who are crushed like a moth? Between morning and evening, they are broken in pieces and destroyed, unobserved and unnoticed. They perish forever. Is not their tent cord drawn up with them so that the tent collapses? Do they not die and yet without acquiring wisdom? Yeah. You are small and insignificant, and God does not care. You did something, and that's all it took because God doesn't care about you. That's that's what I'm getting out of Eliphaz here. That's what I'm getting out of Eliphaz. Oh, to hell with it. Let's go ahead and do chapter 5. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it because he's still talking. Yeah, let's finish what Eliphaz says. God is just. Call now. Is there anyone who will answer you, and to which the holy ones angels will you turn? For anger slays the foolish man, and jealousy kills the simple and naive. I have seen the foolish taking root and outwardly prospering, but I cursed his dwelling immediately, for his destruction was certain. His children are far from safety and included in their father's ruin. They are oppressed and crushed in the court of justice in the city's gate, and there is no one to rescue them. Is anybody going to help you? Not only did you suffer for it, your kids got caught up in it too. And there is no appeal. There is no recourse for this. They are gone. They are dead. They are out of your life. The hungry devour his harvest, and take it even when it grows among the thorns. The trap opens for his wealth. For affliction does not come forth from the dust, nor does trouble spring forth from the ground. For a man is born for trouble, as naturally as sparks fly upward. As for me, I would seek God and inquire of him, and I would commit my cause to God, who does great and unsearchable things, marvelous things without number. He gives rain upon the earth and sends water upon the fields, so that he sets on high those who are lowly, and he lifts to safety those who mourn. He frustrates the devices and schemes of the crafty, so that their hands cannot attain success or achieve anything of lasting worth. He catches the so called wise in their own shrewdness, and the advice of the devious is quickly thwarted. In the daytime they meet in darkness, and at noon they grope as in the night, groping. But God saves the innocent from the sword of the mouth of the devious, and the poor from the hand of the mighty. So the helpless have hope, and injustice shuts its mouth. Behold, how happy and fortunate is the man whom God reproves. So do not despise or reject the discipline of the Almighty, subjecting you to trial and suffering. For he inflicts pain, but he binds up and gives relief. He wounds, but his hands also heal. He will rescue you from 6 troubles. Even in 7, evil will not touch you. In famine, he will redeem you from death, and in war, from the power of the sword. You will be hidden from the scourge of the tongues, and you will not be afraid of the destruction when it comes. You will laugh at violence and famine, and you will not be afraid of the wild beasts of the earth. For you will be in harmony with the stones of the field, and the beasts of the field will be at peace with you. You will know that your tent is secure and at peace, and you will visit your dwelling and fear no loss, nor find anything amiss. You will know also that your descendants will be many, and your offspring is the grass of the earth. You will come to your grave in old age, like the stacking of grain on the threshing floor in its season. Behold this, we have investigated it, and it is true. Hear and heed it, and know for yourself for your own good. So we get a bit of a different tone here. This is where this is a big shift. So maybe I'm reading 4 wrong. Maybe I'm reading 4 wrong. And this is why I'm curious about whether I'm getting it right or not. And let me go ahead and why can't I change it? Oh well, I'll change it on YouTube. Um in chapter 5, he's basically saying, "Look, you did something wrong and you and your family got caught up in it." And then he goes, "As for me, I would seek God and inquire of him, and I would commit my cause to God." So what you need to do is go to God and find out what you need, how you need to be better. You need to find out what you did to make him angry. You need to find out what you did to be to cause this kind of uh, misfortune, this type of action from God. Because if God really likes you, because God's an almighty being, when he's talking about who does great and unsearchable things, marvelous things without number, that's true. God are those things. Gives up rain upon the earth and sends water upon the fields. So he sets on high those who are lowly, and he lifts to safety those who mourn. A little foreshadowing of the of King David and maybe a little bit of the Beatitudes. He frustrates the devices and schemes of the crafty so that their hands cannot attain success or achieve anything of lasting worth. And here's where it starts to really start. Now he's starting to really seem like he needs to be accusatory. He catches the so-called wives in their own shrewdness, and the advice of the devious is quickly thwarted. God's punishing you, and he's trying to teach you a lesson. Behold, how happy and fortunate is the man whom God reproves. So do not despise or reject the discipline of the Almighty, subjecting you to trial and suffering. You need to learn from this. He's all over Eliphaz is all over the map on this. He inflicts pain but binds up grief. Okay, Veritex, you're reading it. Yeah, the more I read 5, the more it sounds like an accusation about God as much as Job. Okay, because I'm reading it from a different. I'm reading it from a different place. Now it almost sounds to me now like he's talking about how God does great things, and if you've done something wrong, um, you need to learn from it. Clearly, you've done something wrong. You need to inquire of what you did something wrong for God, and you need to fix it because that's why bad things are happening to you. And it's easy. And here's the part. That's why I said I feel like he's all over the map. Satan's tempting him one way to say something. I was visited by a spirit, and he said this, and he's kind of accusatory of God. But then this time he's saying God's great and these other things. But is he talking in sarcasm? I'm not picking it up. But it is an interesting part here. So do not despise or reject the discipline of the Almighty, subjecting you to trial and suffering. But does that mean everything bad that happens to you is God disciplining you? Look, misfortune, failure, it's always a learning experience. Always a learning experience. Always learning how to be. But grief, tragedy, that is not always something that meant as a bit of discipline. You didn't always do something wrong. Sometimes you did something right. Sometimes this doesn't have anything to do with whatever you've done that may sound um whatever you've done in the past unrelated to this. Yeah, said Veritex said, well, sounds a little bit like Calvinistic determinism, but he's so all over the place it's hard to be sure. I think at this point Eliphaz is rambling, right? He started off, he's got some thoughts in his head, and then this is to me he's rambling at this point. But he hits different parts. Don't think that everything bad that happens to you is God punishing you for something. Don't think it's because you did something wrong. If you're doing something right, don't stop just because misfortune happened to you. This is bad advice here. No, you don't want to reject discipline from God, but who are you to determine what is God and that is who are you to determine that everything that bad comes from God? Doesn't make sense. And that's wrong. And that falls into that whole look. If something bad happened to you, clearly clearly has something to do with some sin because God has the ability to protect you. We know this. We've learned this from what God has said. He put your faith in me, and I will guide you to where I want you to be. And then you'll have peace, you'll have lots of kids, you'll live a long time, and you won't be afraid when tragedy hits, you won't be touched by it, all these things. All these things. Behold this, we have investigated, and it is true. Hear and heed it, and know for yourself for your own good. And that's where he ends. So we're going to hear Job's response tomorrow night with chapter 6. We'll start. But yeah, Eliphaz, I don't think for having a week. I think what might be here sounds like a prosperity preacher there. Dan, he sounds like a lot of things. And here's what's happening, I think. He had that vision from Satan. And he had that vision from Satan. He sat there in silence with his friend for a week, right? He's got a lot of thoughts in his head. And maybe he's got so many, it's coming out disorganized. Maybe it's coming out disorganized. Again, I could be reading this wrong. Maybe he's being sarcastic here. Maybe he's being sarcastic here because there's a couple different ways you can read this. You can read this as sarcasm. Oh yeah, you'll get all these great things if God loves you. You're not going to get them because because you have made a mistake. Some small tedious thing. You are imperfect. You have no path to righteousness. But if you were, all this stuff would be great. All your life would be great, but it's not. It sucks right now. And the reason it sucks is because you did something wrong. No, Nico, don't worry. Everybody's going to get their 2 cents worth in. Spoiler alert, so will God. Um, everybody's going to speak. Job and Eliphaz and the other folks that are there, everybody's going to talk. Everybody's going to put their 2 cents worth in. And maybe he presumes to speak for them. I don't know. But either way, whether when you're reading this from a position of sarcasm, it's really bad. If you read this from a position of earnest, trying to figure things out, um, it just comes off as ignorant because he doesn't know. He doesn't know if Job did anything. Again, as we said as me and MR were talking about, due process. What accusations have been made? How do you know this is true? This is your friend, right? You should know him as righteous. Have you known him to set a foot wrong? And how wrong would that step have to be for God to bring this kind of devastation on him? God didn't do that to Moses. God didn't do that to David. There were certainly consequences. There were certainly punishment. Nothing like this. Of course, this is before Moses and David. But we know this, right? We know this. It's either he's either being sarcastic or from a position of ignorance. But either way, it's not great advice. And it's not helpful. This man's mourning. He's not looking for a solution to a problem. He might be looking for an answer to why this all happened. He might be asking a big why. But the answers that Eliphaz are giving him aren't helpful at all for him. Because Job might look back and go, what did I do? I didn't do, when all this stuff was taken from me, I didn't curse God. I stayed loyal to him. And now I've got this going on with my body, and I'm still loyal to him. Veritek said, given that this is post-Noatic flood, It could be that the general idea of do good and the Lord leaves you alone. Find calamity and you might need to apologize to God. Maybe. I'd like your Nath to be here for this. Maybe if he's here tomorrow night during stream, we'll talk about it. All right, guys, we're at an hour. And I think we've hit it pretty well. Job is going to be one of those where I'm going to challenge you guys to kind of pour over what we talk about a little bit after the stream. Maybe listen to this stream a couple of times. Maybe I say go over Job on Audible or in a Bible on your own and kind of read through it and get your own impressions, because there's a lot to pull out of this as we go along. And as long as Job is, it's really good to hit it all at once, to read the whole thing in its entirety. But it's hard. It's a bit of a slog because there's a lot of soapboxes. There's a lot of long, drawn out dialogue, and that's basically what most of this is a long, drawn out discussion. I'm not sleepy. I'm actually not tonight. I do have the monitor though. Wife hit a wall tonight. She's got to get some rest. Pray she gets a lot of sleep tonight. Pray that she gets sleep. She needs a lot of it. All right, guys. Thank you for joining me tonight. We're going to wrap this up, and we're going to wrap this up and bring it back tomorrow. But here's the thing. To those guys, make sure she gets enough water with this heat. Oh, yeah. She's good about that. Those of you who are dealing with maybe not tragedy, maybe just frustrations with what's going on in your life, with your situation in life in general. Maybe it's career related, maybe it's relationship related, maybe it's family related, maybe it's loss related, maybe it's health related. Don't know. Look at what I'm not saying Job got through it, you can get through it too. I mean, I will always say that Job went through the worst, right? The worst things that we can imagine. And he got through it. But don't look at that. Job isn't there to be a reminder that you can live through it. We know we can. We know you can. We've seen guys put in the bad situations and make it through with faith. But look at Job to remember this might not all be because you did something wrong. Take stock in what happened. Sometimes bad things do happen to good people. Genuinely. Well, don't let what happens in your life affect your faith. Job might be curious. He might be mournful and sorrowful. He might be looking for answers, but he doesn't doubt that God's there. Maybe he is wondering something about what part of me is so wicked that this has happened. But he has a good quote that we covered Wednesday. Naked I came in to this world, and naked I shall leave. You came in with nothing. You already have something. And you've had really something all along. You've had God there for you. God wants to see you look at this and understand that whether you are highly blessed or not, or seemingly lacking in blessings in your life, he still loves you. Your salvation isn't based on how many blessings have been given to you or how few you've dealt with. God just wants you to love him back and keep his commandments. Listen to him. Be obedient. Honor him. Look for, and one of those things is a big thing of listening out for that is looking out for your fellow man. Right? Just keep that in mind. All right, guys, we'll pick this up with Job's response. So for Alias, Veritax, Nico, Serranos, Sleepy Stew, what the heck? MR, Figs, Wild Weeb, Dresden, Jab Slant. I think that's the whole crew. Thank you guys for bringing in here. Thank you guys for giving me your time. I hope that this is something that you guys are able to get something out of. Maybe commiserate with Job a little bit. Maybe relate to him a little bit. Maybe look up to him. Maybe just find peace with him. Right? Just remember, he's still just a man, just going through some hardships. Who you really need to put your faith in is God. And as we go through Job, that will become clear. All right, guys. Thank you guys for being in the chat, for giving me your contributions. Appreciate it. The chat's great. You guys make this show better. I can't stress that enough. I will always say it. Chat's great. Chat is part of this show, a great part of this show. To everybody who's just listening and didn't want to say anything, didn't have anything to say, maybe were reticent to say something. Hey guys, I encourage you to be part of the chat, but if you don't, that's fine. I'm just glad I'm putting something out there that you enjoy consuming. Either way, if you guys liked it, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Like this show, like this episode, and share it with other people. I'm at 485 subscribers. I think 500 would be a nice milestone, no matter with whatever benefits do or don't come with it. I don't care. We would like to grow this show just because we want to reach more people. So, everybody catching this on replay, I hope to catch you live sometime. In the meantime, guys, be good, have a good night, and God bless.